Hello, everyone. I am your host, Markus Trivedi, alongside my co-host, Ryan Schlesinger, here for episode 2 of the Game Time Sports Network podcast. It is good seeing everyone back, as today we have a lot to cover in sports. The weekend series are wrapping up in baseball, and preseason has kicked off. We are pretty much entering the home stretch of week 2 for the NFL preseason, as there's a lot of news going around and a lot of different things, and there's a lot of cover. But Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Marcus. A lot has happened in sports since the last time we did this, which was 2 weeks ago. We did the trade deadline special, and a lot of stuff has been happening since the trade deadline. Josh Bell and Jake Berger playing really good baseball in Miami. Meanwhile, Ryan Yarbrough and Lance Lynn have made some nice early first impressions in LA, and plenty of other moves starting to pan out and stuff. Like Max Scherzer going to the Rangers, and just a bunch of other stuff. And the National League wild card race is still really, really thin right now.
Mhm.
And by thin, I mean it's just like a bunch of teams stuffed together. There's not any huge leads. Even the Phillies, they're not a lock for first place. I think there's probably like a 90% chance the Phillies get in to the playoffs, but they're still not a lock for first place. The Giants could definitely catch them, and if any team gets hot, they could catch the Phillies. Anything could happen. It's pretty much like a 6-7 team race right now. So a lot of exciting stuff going on in the sports world with the MLB wildcard race and then the NFL preseason. We're through 2 weeks now, and we got one more week left of NFL preseason, then a week of just kind of dead silence in football, and then we got the National Football League making its return. 3 more Sundays till football.
Oh yeah, it is going to be exciting. I mean, prime time on Thursday night, the first game, the Detroit Lions, who look super promising this year. A lot of people's pick, my personal pick, and I believe yours too, Ryan, of winning the NFC North. And then the New York Giants, who I know is your team, and then the Dallas Cowboys, who's America's team, facing off on Sunday Night Football. And then you have the Jets and Bills facing off on Monday Night Football. I think a lot of people are high on the Jets this year with Aaron Rodgers coming into New York. That should be a fun clash.
Yeah, to comment on the Lions, I think they would probably be my pick for the NFC North. Haven't really done full predictions besides stuff at Sports Broadcasting Camp doing little segments. But I mean, if you look at the Lions depth chart, it is just beautiful. Jared Goff is one of the more underrated quarterbacks right now because the Lions really don't get talked about enough, even with their success last season, nearly making the playoffs. They played really well last year. Compared to expectations, their first like decent season in a while. But you got Amon-Ra St. Brown returning for his second season. He looked really promising in his rookie year. And then you got Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to be the starter for the first year in Detroit. A lot of people high on him as a fantasy sleeper pick. And just all around a good team, good defense. Aiden Hutchinson leading the way at the defensive end spot. And yeah, just a really encouraging and promising team. And I think the Lions are definitely the most likely team to win that NFC North. But I mean, you do have some competition, like Green Bay, of course, because we'll see what Jordan Love can do in his rookie season, and we'll see if Christian Watson can have a breakout year. Like I would not count out Green Bay yet. Maybe William Batten is maybe delusional, but I don't know. I think that division's still open, but the Lions would be my main pick.
Yeah, my main pick as well is the Lions, but I still think all other three teams. I don't think the Bears have a high shot. I also don't think the Packers have a high shot. I think the Vikings have an okay shot of winning that division. Realistically, though, I do think the Lions will win the division over all three of them, but I still think all three of them have probably a decent shot of winning that division. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you can count out any of the four teams to not win the division at all right now.
Yeah, 100%. That's a pretty even division. You got four teams who are just really close to each other in terms of skill level. And I don't think the Bears are going to be too bad this year with DJ Moore there in Chicago, and we'll see if other things start clicking. And then, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. You got Justin Fields and DJ Moore, hit or miss duo. And you got Christian Watson and Christian Watson and Jordan Love, hit or miss duo. If things go well for both of those teams, they could be a wild card team or win the division over Detroit and Minnesota. But I definitely think the Lions and the Vikings are the two main picks to win that division. You kind of know what you're going to get out of the Vikings, but they do have rookie receiver Jordan Addison coming in there. He's probably going to be the second receiver after Keenan Allen departs. He is in Carolina with the Panthers now, and he'll
Adam
be
Thielen, yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see. What the did I say Keenan Allen? I meant Adam Thielen. I don't.
Yeah, you said Keenan Allen on an accident.
My bad. Yeah, I meant Adam Thielen. But yeah, Thielen will be one of the main pass catchers in Carolina, and Jordan Addison will take a pretty decent role with the Vikings in his rookie year behind Justin Jefferson, who I believe is going into his fourth season. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I think TJ Hawkinson, who is one of the best tight ends in the NFL, probably a tier off from probably like the two best tight ends in the NFL, or three best in Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and George Kittle. He's probably that next tier of
Yeah.
guys, along with like Darren Waller too. But he's a stud as well. And then KJ Osborne, who's been super underrated for the Vikings throughout his career. He's always showed slivers of hope, and he showed a lot of potential with the Vikings. He's just never really had that shot with the best wide receiver in the NFL right next to him, and Adam Thielen, who was probably a top 25, maybe top 30 receiver at his time with Minnesota. But let's head into baseball now. Speaking of, we'll go backtrack to what you were saying about the NL wild card. The two teams in the main spot, one of them just beat the 80 win team Atlanta Braves today. The other one is currently losing to the Washington Nationals in the Little League World Series Baseball Classic Sunday night baseball special. But those two teams will square off to start off the week in a 3-game series. The San Francisco Giants and the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, Ryan, I know it's August. I know it's late August, and there's still about a month and a quarter of baseball left. But I seriously think this Giants Philly series, even as a Braves and White Sox fan who has no interest for either of those two teams, unless if they're playing one of my teams, I think I will seriously check out this series because it will for sure set the momentum. I think the rest of the way for both of those two teams.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting series between the team that holds the first wild card spot and the team that holds the second wild card spot. The two teams that have kind of separated themselves from the pack, at least right now, but the Giants' lead is very thin for that second wild card spot with teams like Arizona who have came back to life and also the Cubs who have been on and off as of late, but they put themselves right in that wild card race. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna pay attention to that series. It's during the school week, so I don't know how much I'll be able to watch, but I'll definitely be paying very close attention to the scores of each game and just seeing who's gonna win that series. Because if the Phillies sweep that series, first of all, that's very huge. It's unlikely that happens considering they're coming off likely a series loss to the Nationals, the 56 win Nationals who aren't terrible. They're 12 games back of 500, but they've been playing a lot better recently, and their youngsters have been playing well. Maybe a good sign for 2024 that they could maybe compete for a wild card spot in 2024 if they don't trade away any key pieces of the team like Lane Thomas and other guys. And this success for the Nationals in the second half is also coming without Jamer Candelario as he went to the Cubs team trying to get into that wild card spot. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. But
Yeah.
yeah, if the Phillies do sweep that, I think they definitely improve their odds a lot for the first wild card spot. And if the Giants are able to sweep that or just win 2 out of 3, then they're basically tied with the Phillies.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I agree. Philadelphia has two home series this upcoming week, one against the Giants and then one against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Giants will obviously be in Philadelphia to start off the week, but then they'll head back home, but they will be facing the team that they just faced for the past 3 days, and they lost a series to the Atlanta Braves, who are the best, probably the best. I think no debate, the best team in baseball right now, have 80 wins strong. The Dodgers are 4 behind that, but still, the 80 win Braves that they'll have to face, probably more wins by the end of that, as the Braves are going to be taking on the New York Mets, who do not look good and who they've been respectfully kicking their asses this whole year. But Heading now to the AL. Now, I definitely think the Orioles and the Astros, or not the Orioles, obviously the Orioles are in first place in their division, but the Rays and the Astros, I think they're set in stone for where they are. They will make the wild card. They will make the postseason. But the interesting part is the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays are now neck and neck for getting that last spot in the wild card. But the Boston Red Sox are right behind them. I mean, they've been winning games. They just swept the New York Yankees, and now they'll be facing the Astros, who don't mind you is a tough team to beat. But I think the Red Sox are capable of winning two games in that series against the Astros, regardless if it's in Houston or not. So the Red Sox could definitely sneak into that race. And then I think from down there, it's really teams that we know are not going to make the postseason. I mean, there's a chance that the Angels and Yankees make the
Yeah, yeah. Don't
postseason.
don't say anything about the Yankees because I want to talk about the Yankees. I'll talk about them right now. The New York Yankees are the biggest disaster I've ever
Yeah,
seen, outside of the team called the New York Mets and maybe the San Diego Padres. They were disappointing throughout this first half. They were a few games above 500. They were like hanging in there, and they had a wild card spot. And then second half came, they've completely fallen off
yeah,
the face of the earth, and they are 9 games back of a wild card spot in that very tough American League. Maybe you're speaking a different language if it's in the National League, but they're 60 and 64, and the team that holds the last wild card spot in the American League is the Mariners with a 69 and 55 record. So they're way ahead of the Yankees. I mean, they're 9 wins better, and they're over 10 games above 500, while the Yankees are 4 games below 500. The Yankees are on an 8-game losing streak. They've won one in their last 10 games, and all this terrible slump from the Yankees. All of this started, in my opinion, when the Marlins won 2 out of 3 against them. Sandy Alcantara went the distance against them for a complete game. And then the next day, Jake Berger hit a walk-off and a miraculous comeback in the ninth inning after the Marlins were down by, I believe, 5 runs in that game. I think that kind of ended the Yankees season, and it looks like they haven't been able to recover and just got swept by their rival. It's looking really bad for the Bronx Bombers right now. But I'd even say that the Cleveland Guardians have a better chance than the Yankees. The Guardians are 59 and 66, but the Twins are only 65 and 60. So if the Guardians could miraculously win their series against the Twins in some way, shape, or form, they only have 6 wins less than the Twins, which is kind of a lot, but I would not count the Guardians out of it yet. To maybe win that AL Central, but obviously that's their only way into the playoffs because they are 10 and a half games back of a wild card spot, of the final wild card spot, which feels really, really weird to say. Because usually you have a better chance at getting a wild card spot than winning your division, but the AL Central is just god awful. So their division leader is only 5 games above 500.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Guardians, they're they are trailing the Twins right now in that division. But seriously, on a serious note, though, I get the Guardians have a shot, but I think the Twins are going to hold strong onto that division lead. I mean, I get they don't have a lot of wins this season, but I've been saying this even when the Twins got swept by the Atlanta Braves. I still think that the Twins are still a good baseball team. I mean, I'm willing to argue with anyone. I'm not calling them elite. I'm not saying that they're going to make the championship series, but I'm saying there's definitely a possibility they could make the divisional round. And I think they'll give whoever the 6 seed is a tough challenge in the wild card round. I seriously think the Twins are a good team. They're just not elite or as good as teams like the Rays, Astros, Orioles, or Rangers. And as for the Guardians, I think they're kind of a dumpster fire. I mean, the Detroit Tigers just beat them today. I think they won that series actually against them. Yeah, they did. Uh, and they're only 2.5 games back
Oh
in,
shoot! Wait!
for the Guardians in the
I didn't
wild.
realize that. Hold up, the Tigers are actually right behind the guard. The Tigers aren't that far back of the Guardians. They're only Yeah, they're not far back of the Guardians. They're 1.5 games back of them. Um, there is actually a small chance the Tigers could win the division too. If the Tigers go on a crazy run and the Twins like start playing terribly, but if you consider the Guardians to win the division, you have to also consider the Tigers too to have like a 3% chance to catch the Twins. I would say that.
Yeah, the Tigers are they just beat the Guardians rear ends this weekend, so they won that series respectfully. And not too long ago, I'm sure everyone remembers this series. Down goes Anderson. White Sox still won that series too. So I mean, I get their 15 and a half games back of the division, but they were also able to catch a hold of the Cleveland Guardians. But um I forgot what I was gonna say. Uh, I think I was going to say, like, going back to your point. Oh, yeah. Going back to your point about the New York Yankees. Yeah, I think it all fell down when they faced the Miami Marlins. Then they went to go face the best team in the baseball, the Atlanta Braves. And I don't mean to sound pompous here about talking about the Braves every 2 seconds, bringing them into every discussion. But, I mean, it's true. And then the Yankees, I think it all fell down. Then they go to face the Red Sox. They get swept at home, which was an embarrassment. So, yeah, I don't see anything of the
Yeah.
Yankees picking it up.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire for them. That's the only thing you could say. And I do forgive you for constantly bringing up the Braves because they are the best team in baseball. They have probably you could argue one of the best offenses in the baseball history, at least since like 1970, like before crazy stuff was going on. Like I mean, after crazy stuff was going on, like Ted Williams and Babe Ruth. But yeah, the Braves are one of the best offenses in recent history. So yeah, I do forgive you for mentioning them because they're 80 and 43. But I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah.
We'll reverse roles here since you're the host and I'm the co-host. But I'll ask you a question. How many wins do you think that the Braves will finish with?
Man, that's tough.
Because they're not slowing down anytime soon. The Braves,
Yeah.
they're 8-10 in their. I mean, they're 8-2 in their last 10. So
All right,
it doesn't look like they're slowing down.
I'm gonna look up something real quick. I forgot how many wins they have, like the most amount of wins they've won, the most amount of games they've won in a single season. Braves all time wins in a single season. I'm gonna check that real quick. Okay, the most in franchise history was 106.
They can
I
beat that.
I think that's 100% beatable, considering the fact it's August. It is August
20th.
20th today, and they already have 80 wins, and they would only need 26 more to beat that. I think that's 100% beatable, considering we have still a whole month of baseball left. I mean, I believe they face the Nationals towards the end of the year, so I think those will be a lot of winnable games.
Yeah. Even though the Nationals have been better, like it's not a completely free series.
Yeah,
Y'all could like lose one game in some of those series. Like it's not an
we
automatic
could. We
sweep.
could, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think they will break that record. That seems pretty beatable. Like the Dodgers won 111
Yeah.
games last year. Why can't the Braves win like
Oh, yeah.
108 games or something like that? I don't know if they'll get 111 just because I think once they clinch a playoffs or well, they're going to clinch the division soon. They're probably going to clinch the division. Well, they'll clinch the playoffs before they clinch the division, but I mean, they're basically a lock to win the division. If you look at how big, well, they don't have a crazy lead. Okay, yeah, they do have a crazy lead on the Phillies. 13 games on the Phillies. So in like 2 weeks, I think maybe they might start sitting
Yeah.
Acuna more than they usually do. Like sitting some of their guys, not like crazy sitting, but like just giving more off days than usual
Yeah,
and
yeah.
giving them the rest they need to prepare for the playoffs.
Agreed. But 3 weeks from now, I think actually, no. So tomorrow, 3 weeks from tomorrow, on September 11th, they'll have a 4 game series against the Philadelphia Phillies, and they'll have a doubleheader on that Monday. So that'll be another divisional series. And by the way, I'm you can fact check me. I'm about 99% sure that the Atlanta Braves haven't lost a single series to any NL East team yet this year. But also keep in mind the Braves do have a 4 game series against the Dodgers coming up in about 2 weeks. So that will be huge as well. But they still have a couple, I think 2 more series against the Phillies. I think this is their last series against the Mets, I'm pretty sure. I know they have another series against the Marlins, and then they play two, maybe more than two series against the Nationals. So I think
Yep.
it'll be pretty winnable. I say they finish over that mark. I'd say just about like 110 wins. I think the pace will slow down a little bit towards the end of the season. Now, Ryan, here's our last question for me to you before we head into football. The NL Central is a questionable division. The Brewers currently have a 3-game lead there. Personally, I think they'll win the division. But what's at stake for the Cubs and Reds? Do you think either of those teams need to win the division more, or do you think they need to really try and get that card spot more? I know the Cubs are currently in the 6th spot for the wild card, but also the Reds, they might lose some games right now, which could be valuable against the Angels, as obviously the Hurricanes in Los Angeles and all over California are spreading, and that series is slated to be in LA. So, what's at stake for the Cubs and Reds considering their
Yeah,
division?
it's really interesting what's going on with the Reds because they're playing the Angels in Anaheim. Well, the team that they're right with in that wild card race, the Miami Marlins, who the Reds and the Marlins are currently tied, they're also playing in Southern California against the Padres. So there will be two great games that highly impact each other going on at the same time this week. Reds, Angels, and Marlins, Padres. So that'll be very fun. Right now, the Cubs have a full game lead over Diamondbacks, Reds, and the Marlins. The Diamondbacks, Reds, and Marlins all have a 64 and 61 record, while the Cubs have their 64 and 59 records. So they just have two less losses, but the same amount of wins, interestingly enough. But yeah, and then the Padres, they are 5 games back of that three-way tie between the Diamondbacks, the Reds, and the Marlins. So I mean, sorry, they're 5 games back and they're 6 games back of the Cubs. So, but what's at stake for the Reds here and the Cubs? I don't really think that either of them are going to win that division. The Brewers have 68 wins. They are 11 games above 500. They've really caught fire after not too long ago, like 2.5 weeks ago. The Reds actually had first place in that division for like 2 days or like 1.5 days. And now the Brewers have taken a light lead over the Reds and the Cubs. But again, it's not a lock. One of the two, the Cubs or the Reds, could catch fire, then the Brewers could go on a losing streak. And I'm sure they will also face each other. They will face each other head to head. But yeah, I think the Brewers have a very good chance to win that NL Central. And then it'll be the Cubs and the Reds fighting for a wild card spot. I think only one of them will get the wild card spot. But it's really tough for the Marlins because I'm worried because, most people are saying the Phillies are a lock to get a wild card spot at least. And then the Giants, they could get a wild card spot. So it's going to be like a crazy race for that third wild card spot between the Giants, Cubs, Diamondbacks, Reds, and Marlins. And if the Phillies start losing a little bit more frequently, it could be an even bigger race. So it is going to be very, very exciting come late September and like the first 2 days of October. But one thing I did want to bring up is that the Marlins won the season series against the Cubs. So if there is a split, like a complete tie for the last wild card spot between the Marlins and the Cubs and just the Marlins and the Cubs, the Marlins would get that because under the new MLB rules after the lockout, tiebreakers are decided by season series.
Yeah. Which is an interesting rule. That it is huge because I remember back in I think 2021 or 2020, the Brewers and Cubs they played a game to decide who would make the playoffs and who would go on to win the division. And then the Cubs ended up getting rocked, and I think the Brewers ended up I think they did end up making the championship series that year in the NL. But either way, I'm not for sure though. It might have not been 2020 though, because actually it might have, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, heading into the NFL now, we're in week 2 of preseason. There's not too much to recap over. There was actually, this is kind of interesting. There were two ties this week. The Browns and Eagles tied, who Samuel Levine used to be one team Samuel Levine used to be a fan of,
And
and
then
one team he
Deshaun
isn't
Watson
now.
and then Deshaun Watson massaged Samuel's fandom away from the Browns.
And then the Bengals and Falcons. The Falcons, one of my teams, uh, tied as well in their preseason match. But I think more importantly, what everyone's focused right now in their preseason, individually, how well their teams are doing. But I think if you ask every NFL fan, aside from what their favorite team is doing, but if you didn't ask a Panther, Colt, or Texan fan, what's the most interesting part about this preseason? I think it's watching the three main headlined rookie quarterbacks, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony
Yes,
Richardson.
sir.
So Bryce Young played against the New York Giants. The Giants did go on to win that game. Bryce Young, he didn't get really that many snaps. He had 6 attempts for passing, three three completions for 35 yards, which isn't that bad if you punch that into the calculator. I'm not going to right now, but that's roughly around like I think 12 to 15 passing yards per drive. Maybe I'd say more around 12 or 11, but I'd say like around 11 to 13. And then CJ Stroud went 7 for 12 passing wise for him. The Dolphins ended up crushing the Texans in that game, but CJ Stroud went on to go have 60 passing yards on 7 for
Hmm.
12 completions. But also, a noticeable factor, I mean, Davis Mills has actually been playing pretty well in preseason, but Tua Tagovailoa struggled. Went 5 for 7, 61 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. We'll get to that later. But Stroud and Young both played not that many snaps. It was a minimal count. Anthony Richardson, I believe, I'm almost 100% sure. Again, a 99% sure thing. I'll check it. Yeah, he did not play a single snap for the Indianapolis Colts last night against the Chicago Bears, so he hasn't played yet. But I don't think any three of those QBs have done anything that impressive yet. So, but Ryan, I want to ask you this. I'm gonna head into some takes now. Who do you think out of the three, not career wise, but just this season, will have the best season out of the three main rookie quarterbacks in Stroud, Richardson, and Young?
Well, it's tough, and I'm gonna say this. I think that Bryce Young will have. Hold on, let me turn my mic volume. Okay, I think that Bryce Young will have the best rookie season. I think the system that he's in with Carolina really fits him very well, and I know more about the Panthers than I do those other two teams, and the Texans and the Colts. But I really like the system that Young is in because there's a lot of other new guys there. There you got Miles Sanders. He's coming from Philly. He's new. Adam Thielen. He's coming from Minnesota, who I already mentioned in this podcast. He's new. And then you got DJ Chark Jr. He is new to the Panthers as well. And then you also have Jonathan Mingo, the rookie. So pretty much the whole main wide receiver core, and their starting running back, they're all new to the Panthers as well as the majority of the Panthers defense too and some of their O line. So like he's not going to be the only one there that's a rookie and I mean that could really help him because he has other guys who are either rookies to the NFL or just rookies with the Panthers system. So I think it'll be nice having them learn it together and they could develop completely new styles under the same coach. So I would say Bryce Young, his rookie year, I think it'll be the best. Overall, I think it'll be Richardson, simply based off just his talent. I think he is the most. He has the most upside.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. I think it'll be Bryce Young for this rookie season, but I also think it'll be Richardson for the future. But I mean, if you look specifically at this year, Bryce Young has probably the best coach out of the three right now, with Frank Reich coaching him. Ryan, you mentioned pretty much the supporting cast outside of Hayden Hurst, who is also a new addition to the Panthers. I get the offensive. The only I think struggle with him is he has a good defense with them too, which will give him more time to be under cool and relax and not be pressured onto the field every 2 minutes with a defense that's giving up like 2 touchdowns like Justin Fields had to deal with last year or Davis Mills. But Or I think that CJ Stroud, I don't know if he will, but I think Richardson might. I don't know. Both of those defenses are questionable, but the Panthers, I'm confident that are going to be a good defense. I think the only thing Young will struggle with, that I think Frank Reich will need to help develop him with, is being more of a mobile quarterback. I get he is mobile, but I mean, if you look at his formation while he's passing, you could tell when he wants to run, you could tell when he wants to pass. He just stands in the pocket staggered and like he just throws. Like he's just up, it doesn't move at all. He just like right here and then throws. He needs to be mobile because he's going to experience a lot of hits in his rookie season. He's going to experience a ton of sacks because that Panthers offensive line, let's be honest, it's not that great at all. I think it's probably the worst offensive line out of the three. I think the Colts and Texans will both be middle of the pack. I mean, the Colts were one of the better offensive lines in the NFL like 2 years ago, but they took a massive step down last year. And the Texans, they have some new additions. They also still have Laramie Tunsil, I believe. Yeah, they still have Laramie Tunsil, but so they'll be solid. But I think Young, that's the only thing he's going to struggle with. But I still think he'll be the best QB out of the draft. And then I think Richardson will still be purely off of just his talent and his potential, will be the best QB out of all of them in the future. Now, before we head up the episode, or before we end it, rapid fire real quick. Ryan, give me your hottest take for this upcoming NFL season.
Well, I didn't really have one prepared, so you gave me a curveball. I'm gonna have to brainstorm some NFL hot takes, but for now, I'll say this: I think that Darren Waller has a big bounce back season with the New York Giants. Because he's coming off an injury, but he gets a fresh start out of the Las Vegas Raiders system, which is probably not the best for him. And now he's going to be the main pass catcher there with guys like Jalen Hyatt and Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, and Paris Campbell, Cole Beasley. Giants wide receiver room's deep, by the way, but he's probably going to be the main pass catcher there behind a ton of receivers who are very similar to each other in terms of skill set, skill level. So I think that Darren Waller is going to be a top 4, maybe even top 3 tight end after the season. I think he could jump guys like George Kittle if you already have Kittle over him. And maybe even Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, if you have those guys ahead of him. I don't know. I think the only guy that he can't really get over is Travis Kelce, just because of how consistent Kelce has been, even though he might start to decline as age may start catching up to him. He's been around with the Chiefs for a while. So that's my hot take, but I'll come up with an even hotter take and share it on the next episode.
Yeah, I mean, I got a tough one. I'm going to actually go. I think this is a super hot take. This isn't about how good teams will be. Now, I think it's super hot considering how good each team's running back and wide receiver one is, but this is purely off just how bad their QB1 is. The Raiders and Titans will compete for the number 1 overall pick and Caleb Williams sweepstakes in the NFL draft next year, and they'll be the 2 worst teams in the NFL this year. Now, I get this is risky to say, as the Raiders have Adams and Josh Jacobs, the Titans have Henry and Hopkins, but their QBs are Jimmy Garoppolo and Ryan Tannehill, respectfully. Both of those teams have horrible defenses, and both offensive lines will probably be some of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And as we've seen, the worst offensive lines in the NFL, it's been a consistent pattern throughout the past couple years that those will be the worst teams. I mean, you see the Texans and Bears like that last year, and the Colts as well. So I think that'll pretty much do it for our episode here today. I'm Markus Trivedi with Ryan Schlesinger. We got a lot of stuff through today, a lot of takes. We'll expand more throughout the next couple weeks, especially leading up to the NFL season and MLB playoffs, which will be a fun time to cover. And then the NBA and NHL will be coming soon. So I'm Marcus Trivedi. Go follow my Twitter at MPT Sports 23. Ryan Schlesinger, go follow his Twitter at Marlins Ryan.
Sir.
Ryan, you got anything else to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah. You can also just follow my Marlins podcast outside of this All Sports podcast. You can check out my Marlins podcast called Marlins HQ, and also a random plug. Get my good friend Peter Pratt, host of the Locked On Marlins. Get him to 1K subs. Let me check how many he's at now, because I just subscribed to him on my on my backup Gmail account to get him to 995. So yeah, go subscribe to Locked On Marlins. Oh, he's at 1K. All right. Well, you can still go subscribe to him anyway. But yeah,
Attaboy, Peter.
congrats to Peter Pratt if you're somehow listening to this, because I'll post this on my Twitter. Congrats on 1K.
Yeah, 100%. All right, everyone, go rest up. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Markus Trivedi here, signing off with Ryan Schlesinger. We'll all see you soon as we're signing out. We'll see you on our next episode for Game Time Sports Network, and hopefully we'll have a new broadcast, probably Sunday Night Baseball, coming up soon.
Too legit.